Good evening and welcome back to our weekly question and answer series, fanash.org. Question: if a person made a mistake and he said on the bracha while putting up a mezuzah, he made the bracha לתקוע mezuzah instead of לקבוע mezuzah, was he yoitza or he has to say the bracha again? The Rambam says in the first perig of Hilchos Brachos that all the brachas you could also say in any language you speak, but has to be according to what Chazal was masaking how a bracha has to look like. So you have to mention the Rabbeinu Shalom's name, you have to say the Shem of Hashem is Baruch, you have to say Malchis, that means Melech Olam, and you have to say the Inyan HaBracha. And once you said Shem, Malchis, and the Inyan of the bracha, the topic of the bracha, you're yoitza. So Likboya Mezuzah is okay because we know Tkiya is the same kavana, the same meaning as Likboya Mezuzah. As we see in Yeshaya Chav Beis, it says it kativ Yused b'mukim neman. So tekiya means also to connect, the same as likboya. So therefore, if a person made the bracha litkoya mezuzah instead of likboya mezuzah, he was yoitza and he doesn't have to say a bracha again. Question: I know it's early for Pesach, but I have a cat. Can I order from a regular company gluten-free cat food for Pesach? And the answer is no, you cannot. Gluten-free food is not necessarily kosher for Pesach. Gluten-free food means that they took out the gluten from the wheat. But the way processing how to take out the gluten from the wheat, there is a couple of ways. And some ways is an option that makes it chometz, by soaking it in water, etc. So whenever it says gluten-free, it's not necessarily it's kosher for Pesach. So in order to have one animal food which is kosher for Pesach, you have a look around, or in the books, which it gives a list of all the medications and animal foods which is kosher for Pesach, and use them, but you cannot use one which just says gluten-free food. Question: if someone is learning Chasidas before davening and then sees that it's already Chatzos, can he daven? The Alter Rebbe writes in Shulchan Aruch Simon Paites Sif Beis that the person can daven Shachris if he didn't daven on time in Zman Tefillah, he can daven till Chatzos Hayoim. And even if he didn't daven b'meizet, he didn't daven by Zman Tefillah, he could still be mashlim and daven till Chatzos Hayom. But if it's past Chatzos Hayom, which then it's no more the time of davening Shachris, it's the time of already davening Mincha. If he's a shoygik, he should daven two Shmoy Nesres, first one for Mincha, and the second one will be Tashlimim for Shachris. And if he's a Mezet, he cannot even daven Tashlimim. He lost that davening. The Mishnah Brira, also in Simon Paites, in Bir Alocha Divrei Maschel, after Vache Chatzos, writes that if a person davens after Chatzos, Berchoise v'levatula, his brachas are levatula. He makes a bracha levatula at least lekama poiskim. In the Shulchan Aruch from Kabbalah Simon Kivov Sif Aleph writes, if a person davens after Chatzos, it is yesh boy betzat minus. So when we talk, if a person is sitting learning Chassidus before davening, and he sees that it becomes Chatzos, can he daven? The answer is no. You don't daven after Chatzos. It's also to daven after Chatzos. You have to make sure that you learn Chassidus and you still have time to daven before Chatzos. If you can't, you need a couple of hours to learn Chassidus, wake up earlier. But you cannot daven after Chatzos, because after Chatzos is no more the time of davening Shacharas, it is the time of davening Mincha, and according to some poskim, berchoise v'levatula. So, to answer your question, don't get in such a situation, and you have to daven before Chatzos. Now you're going to ask me, we know there were Gedolah Hasidim, which used to daven for hours, they used to daven after Chatzos. So I will quote you something which Rabbi Yoel, our dear Mashpia Rabbi Yoel, used to say, B'Shem, his Mashpia, Reb Shaul Brook. And this is how it's also printed in Badarkei Hasidim, page 319. He said, Rabbi Yoel used to say, B'Shem Reb Shaul Brook, that used to say a mashal. There was once a storekeeper, which sold a lot of stuff, a lot of items to one person. And he had to take out the stuff. He made a lot of money in order to, by selling this item. So he had to open the door and take a couple of guys to take out all the stuff and load it into a truck. By taking out all the stuff, they broke a window of the door. And since the storekeeper made a lot of money from this deal, he didn't say a word, And after the delivery was done, he fixed the window. A week later, a bunch of boys was playing outside of that store, and one boy broke the window of the door. And the storekeeper started screaming, "What are you doing? You're mazik me, you make me a lot of damage." He says, "I don't understand. I was here last week, I saw other people take out stuff from this store, and they broke the window, and he didn't scream. How come now, when we broke the door, you're screaming?" So he said, "You're making a mistake, you don't understand. Last week, the guy purchased from me a lot of stuff. I made a lot of money, tons of money. So by taking out the stuff, he broke a window, nicht gefährlich. But from you, I don't get anything. So just breaking windows without gaining anything, that's a big loss." So Reb Shaul used to say, old Hasidim, which after learning a lot of hours, they used to daven, the Rebbeinu Shalom gained something from their davening. So he didn't look at the loss. But by you davening late, davening after Chatzos, and nothing, such a davening which you daven, so the Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't gain anything for that davening. So breaking a window for nothing. And the same I also saw in Pardes Yosef, Pashas Emor. He brings down from the Heilige Rishner that there was once a person came home after working a whole day hard, and he was waiting for his dinner. His wife should give his dinner, supper. And he was waiting an hour and a half. Now, if after an hour and a half he got a beautiful, nice meal, then, he was mavater, he's waiting, because after all, he got a nice meal. But if the end of the day, after waiting an hour and a half, he got the same meal as he gets every day, he will get angry. So what do we see over here? That alte Chassidim, which they davened afterwards, wie alte Chassidim, like the Chassidish Yidden. So if they did something against Shulchan Aruch, against Halacha, at least the Rebbeinu Shalom gained something from that. So, weißt du, verkickt man an the davening after Chatzos. But we don't daven like the old Chassidim. And davening this way, where we daven after Chatzos, is Aser Medina, like the Alter Rebbe writes in Paschas Shulchan Aruch. Just to finish this question with a Yechidus, which the Rebbe said for Ibn Nemanov, which Ibn Nemanov was a Dehoibena Chassid and really daven ba'avoida. And it's brought down in 3 weeks ago in his Pashas Kesisu, page 12. Reb Nissen was a Yechidus by the Rebbe, Tovshil Lamed Hai, and the Rebbe told him, even the people who daven bariches ba'avoida has to daven with a minyan. Again, the same concept. You have to daven with the minyan, you have to daven before Chatzos, because that's according to halacha. And therefore, if you want to learn Chassidus longer than regularly, you wake up an hour earlier and you learn an extra hour. But it's not a heter that you should daven after Chatzos, which according to some poskim, verchoisev levatol is a brocha levatol. Question. If I, by mistake, lit Shabbos candles before menorah and Chanukah, and then I lit the menorah, was I mechal Shabbos? So, according to your question, I assume that you are basically a man, because the man usually lights the Chanukah menorah. So, if it is like that, and for some reason your wife wasn't home, or she had a baby, she was in the hospital, and you had to lit the Shabbos candles, you know you were not mechal Shabbos, because, as I mentioned already once in previous shir, a man which lights Shabbos candles does not makabel Shabbos by lighting the candles. So by you lighting Shabbos candles, you're not makabel Shabbos, and therefore you have no problem of lighting the Chanukah menorah. L'ketchila you don't do that. L'ketchila you do it like usually that first Chanukah menorah, then Shabbos candles. But if you lit the Shabbos candles beforehand, and then you lit the Shabbos candles, the Chanukah menorah, no, you're not mechal Shabbos. Question. Is pajama pants okay for women? First of all, let me just mention that there's a lot of chassidim which are makpid that the girls should not wear pajama pants at all. Once they get a little bit older, they shouldn't wear pajama pants. They should only wear a nightgown and not pajama pants. But if a person wants that their children should wear under the nightgown pajama pants, since she does it l'shem tznius, because she doesn't want that the feet should be exposed when she's sleeping, you could be lenient, you could be Michael. As we know, there's an Avnat Tzedek which says that since the whole kavana is not to be to dress like a man, the whole kavana is adraba letzorich tznius, and it is not a baguette which is made to beautify a person. So therefore, if you wear it under the nightgown, it's not a problem. When you wear pants under a dress, since the pants you go out on the street, so it's a baguette which made to beautify a lady, so it's also even if it's under the dress. But if it is not a pants, a dress which is made to beautify, because it's only made to use in bed and no one should see you with that, and it's covered with a nightgown, it's not a problem of la silbash, and you could wear it. This is how Rav Osner paskens in Shaivet Alayvi, Chaylik Beis Simas Samach Gimel, in Shal Shivas Pas Sotchu Yerdaya Simas Samach Dalat. Question. Can I sweep my dining room floor after Shabbos meal? A very good question, and let me explain the question. The Alter Rebbe writes in Shulchan Aruch Simmer Shir Lamed Zayin Sif Beis, you are not permitted to sweep your floor in your house only if it is tiled. Some poskim say even if it's not tiled, but we paskin that you cannot do it if it's not tiled. And yesh machmirim, there are also poskim which they are machmer even when it is tiled, that you shouldn't sweep your floor. And the Alter Rebbe finishes v'chayna hagen v'ayin l'shamas. You shouldn't do it. That the minig is we don't sweep the floor even where it's tiled, and you shouldn't change this minig. But through a goy, it's permitted, or through a baguette, or other things which is soft, then you could do it. But a regular way how to sweep your floor, you don't do it, even when it's tiled. Because the reason is because since there used to be floors which was from sand, dirt, and we are afraid you're going to make it straight, and that's Issa D'Oraisa. Now, this is basically the Alter Rebbe's language is the language of the Ramu. The language of the Ramu says, some poskim are machmer even when it's tiled, and that's the meaning of Ein L'Shamas. But this is, according to a lot of poskim, this is only in a place which there are tiled houses which have tiled floors, and there are houses which do not have tiled floors. So since there are houses which it's not tiled the floor, so therefore we are machmar even in a house which has tiles that you shouldn't use it, you shouldn't sweep it in Shabbos, because we cannot make and say one house yes, one house not. So that's why that's the yesh machmirim, and that's the minig va'ain l'shamas. But that's only if there is a houses which there isn't tiled floors. But if it is a town or a city which all the houses are tiled, which in our case all the houses are tiled. Tile does not necessarily mean a stone tile. It could be parquet, could be carpet, could be linoleum, but it means we don't have any house which basically the floor is from sand. So therefore, some poskim say that you don't have to be machmer, and it is according to Tosfos Masechta Shabbos Daf Chof Tesem Bad Beis Divrei Masad Gezeira, and this is how the Mishnah Berurah paskins in Bir Halacha Divrei Maschel Yesh Machmirim, and the Eglatal paskins like that in Meleches Choyresh Sif Yid Beis, the Big Day Yesha, the Urech HaShulchan, the Karban HaSamel. A lot of poskim paskin like this, and as like the Dastoya the Bajan Ruf explains that according to this poskim, they say that the Ramu only said that v'chayin hagel ein shamas because in the time of the Ramu there wasn't a town or a city which every house was tiled. But in nowadays that there aren't b'chlal a place which you don't have tiled floors. That means all the houses in a town is basically tiled. None of them are from sand. So therefore, all these poskim hold that the Ramu did not say the v'chayin hagel ein shamas. Now, since the Alter Rebbe's language is exactly the same as the Ramu, all these poskim which say this in the Ramu will also say in the Alter Rebbe, and it makes sense that the Alter Rebbe brings down of the Lashon of the Ramu, and that's only in a town which there are houses which is not tiled. So, therefore, to answer your question, can you sweep your dining room floor after Shabbos meal? Yes, you could sweep it. Since all of the houses over here in our days are tiled, there is not a sibba that you should be a machmar. Now, if a person wants to be a machmar, again, it's not something funny, because we could say that the Ramu says v'chayin hagel ein shamas even in such a case. But since there is a lot of poskim which say that the Ramu only says it in a place which there isn't a tiled floor, so therefore, if a person does not wants to be lenient, like all the poskim which I mentioned before, he could be lenient and he could sweep his floor on Shabbos, and this is basically the meaning of most of people today's day, that they sweep their floor after the meal. But this is only in a regular house. When it comes to porches, or let's say in a sukkah, which over there, a sukkah, there are a lot of people which make the sukkah on the floor, on the grass. So therefore, the floor of a sukkah, you cannot sweep. Because since by a sukkah there are people who have tiled floors, and there are people who have floors which is still from sand. Therefore, we have a chimra to be machmer. Even a place which does have a floor, even a sukkah which does have a floor, we are machmer, and we don't sweep the floors in a sukkah or outdoors, anything which is not indoor in the house. Good, thank you for joining us, and please join us again next week. And send in your questions to inbox@anash.org. Good night, and have a wonderful week.